The diner smelled of burnt coffee and frying grease. The overnight shift had bled into morning as sunlight crawled reluctantly across cracked linoleum floors. For Chloe, waitress in a faded uniform with a name tag that had lost its shine, it was just another day of balancing trays and swallowing scorn. The restaurant was small, tucked on a corner where truckers, late-night wanderers, and business folk sometimes collided. Chloe had been here 3 years, long enough to memorize regulars' orders, long enough to learn to plaster on smiles even when insults stung, long enough to know invisibility was part of the uniform. That morning, the bell over the door jingled and in walked the type she had learned to dread. Tailored suit, phone glued to his ear, air of wealth so thick it stifled oxygen. He glanced around the room not with curiosity, but with dismissal, like the diner existed beneath him. He chose a booth, gesturing impatiently for her without even pausing his conversation. Chloe felt irritation stir but forced herself to stride forward, pad and pen ready. "Good morning, sir. Can I get you something to drink while you look through the menu?" The man didn't look up. He pressed the phone close and barked into it. "I said millions, not peanuts. Fix it or you're fired." Only after slamming his phone down did he glance at her. His eyes were brilliant blue but detached, his jaw sharp and imposing. "Coffee. Black. And make it quick." Biting back a retort, Chloe simply nodded and brought the coffee within minutes. She set it down gently. He barely noticed. He ordered the fastest, cheapest breakfast on the menu, though his watch could have paid her month's rent twice over. When Chloe asked, "Would you like toast or biscuit with that?" he rolled his eyes. "Does it matter? Just bring something edible." She stiffened but walked away. She told herself it wasn't personal, that men like him carried storms from boardrooms into diners. Still, each clipped word pierced. When she returned with his plate, scrambled eggs, bacon, biscuit steaming, she placed it gently before him. He glanced once, then grunted, "About time. Took you long enough." That was when she broke the script. Instead of smiling, Chloe whispered under her breath, "You're welcome." He glanced up sharply, catching the defiance edging her tone. His brows narrowed as though unaccustomed to resistance. Yet he didn't reply, only returned to his food with practiced indifference. When he finally left, he tossed a crisp bill onto the table without counting. Chloe picked it up, shaking her head at the excessiveness. It was a 20, nearly triple the cost of the plate. He hadn't offered thanks. Maybe the bill was habit, maybe guilt, maybe both. By afternoon, the incident blurred into the haze of other shifts. Chloe told herself it was just another customer, another storm to weather. But something about him lingered, not admiration, not attraction, but the sting of his arrogance and the odd hollow beneath it. She didn't see him again. Days became weeks, weeks stretched into months. That man with blue eyes remained filed alongside every other rude face she had endured. She kept scrubbing tables, paying bills, living small. Until exactly 1 year later when the diner bell jingled again. Chloe turned, routine smile ready, until her breath stalled. It was him. The suit. The storm. Only he didn't stride in with a phone or a sneer. He stood hesitantly as if uncertain he belonged here. And in his hand, of all things, were flowers. The diner had hardly changed. Same cracked linoleum, same hum of the flickering neon sign outside, same smell of bacon grease and burnt coffee. Chloe herself hadn't changed much either. Hair tied back hastily, uniform a shade too faded, name tag clinging by one bent clip. Another year gone by in a loop of long shifts and exhausted nights. But the man in the doorway was not the same. No phone pressed to his ear. No impatient tapping of fingers against the table. No arrogance dripping like spilled whiskey. He looked different. The same tall frame, the same sharp jawline, the same piercing blue eyes, but softer now, almost hesitant. The immaculate suit was gone, replaced by a navy sweater and dark jeans. And in his hands he held a bouquet of tulips, the kind so bright they seemed alien against the dingy diner backdrop. For one surreal second, Chloe forgot to breathe. She remembered the way his words had sliced her. "Does it matter? Just bring something edible, and took you long enough." She remembered the humiliation bubbling under her forced smile that day. And now he stood there, like a ghost carrying both apology and awkwardness in floral form. The bell over the door jingled again as it swung shut behind him. A couple of regulars turned briefly, eyebrows raised, then returned to their mugs. But Chloe stayed frozen behind the counter, pen hovering useless above her notepad. Finally she found her voice. "Table for one?" she asked, tone carefully neutral. He hesitated, then approached the counter. "Actually, table for two. If you'll sit with me." She blinked, disbelieving. "Excuse me?" His lips curved in something that tried to be a smile but landed somewhere between nervous and hopeful. He extended the tulips across the counter. "These are for you." She eyed them, then him. "You're joking." "I'm not." Her eyebrows arched skeptically. "Do you even remember me?" she demanded, crossing her arms. The man exhaled slowly, pressing the flowers closer. "Chloe Morgan." Sharp words under your breath. A look that made me think for the first time in years how ugly I'd gotten. "Yes, I remember." Her flush was equal parts embarrassment and suspicion. "And what, 1 year later you decide flowers erase rudeness?" He nodded grimly. "Not erase. Maybe, begin to atone." The silence stretched sharp between them. Chloe noticed the way his hands trembled slightly against the bouquet. The man she remembered had been steady as stone, untouchable. This man seemed cracked open. After a long pause, she took the flowers, not out of forgiveness, but because letting them droop between them felt crueler than she wanted to be. She muttered, "Fine. Sit." He followed obediently, sliding into the same booth he had occupied a year ago. Chloe walked over slowly, flowers awkward in her hands, pulse hammering against her ribs. She set the bouquet on the counter, poured him coffee, and sat across from him, arms folded, eyes sharp as knives. "Explain." He rubbed the back of his neck, then sighed. "My name's Ethan Cole. Last time I was here I was drowning. That phone call? A merger gone wrong. Thousands of jobs on the line. I wasn't eating, wasn't sleeping. I poured every bit of venom I had onto the first person I saw. That person was you." Chloe's eyes narrowed. "So, lots of people are stressed. Most don't spit on strangers." He grimaced. "You're right." It was inexcusable. His gaze rose, steadying. "Do you know what shocked me? The way you looked at me when you whispered, 'You're welcome.' That tiny act of defiance cut straight through armor I'd built for years. All night I replayed it. All week." She scoffed softly. "One rude customer out of 1,000. I forgot you quicker than you forgot me." His smile flickered faint. "That's the thing. I couldn't forget you. A year passed and I tried to fix my life. Downsize. Step back. Learn to treat people with respect again. But every time I thought of this diner, of a woman who served me kindly despite my cruelty, and who had the courage to call me out when no one else would." Chloe shook her head, incredulous. "And you show up with tulips?" "I didn't know what else to bring," he admitted, tone almost boyish now. "They reminded me of second chances. They bloom again even after being cut down." Despite herself, Chloe's lips trembled, half amused, half moved. She tried to stay firm. "You think I'll swoon because you found poetry in flowers?" "No," Ethan said softly. "I think you'll at least hear me out because I'm trying to be different. Because I came here today not to erase the past but to ask if I might build something better out of it. With you." Chloe's heart jolted. This was absurd. A suit whose arrogance had burned into her memory was now staring at her like she was blessing, not burden. Felt like a prank, a dream. Yet his eyes betrayed no jest, only sincerity, raw and unfamiliar in a man once carved from stone. She sat back, crossing her arms again for defense. "You don't know me. I'm a waitress in a crummy diner." "I know enough," he countered. "I know you work hard. I know you don't bow to arrogance. I know you deserve to be noticed. And I want to know more, if you let me." The words, simple yet transformative, made her throat tighten. She stared at him for a long moment, her practiced sarcasm faltering. Finally she said quietly, "1 cup of coffee. That's all." Ethan smiled, relief flickering across his features like sunrise. 1 cup. I can work with that." As she sipped across from him, tulips bright on the counter, Chloe whispered inwardly, "What on earth am I getting myself into?" But deep down, a spark ignited, a possibility she hadn't dared consider before. The coffee sat steaming on the table, the condensation curling upward like fragile threads between them. Chloe wrapped her hands around the mug mostly to ground herself. She couldn't believe she was here, staring into the familiar yet strange blue eyes of the man who had once made her feel like dirt. Ethan sipped, slower now, as though savoring the act instead of demanding efficiency. "I didn't even like coffee back then," he admitted, a small chuckle escaping him. "I drank it because I thought it made me look invincible. Like I needed to fuel anger instead of slowing down." Chloe arched a brow. "And now?" He smiled faintly. "Now I drink it because it gives me time to pause. And because it's the excuse that finally got me to sit across from you." She rolled her eyes but felt a flicker of warmth beneath his words. "You're pouring this charm on pretty thick. Do you run around every diner making amends to every waitress you've ever yelled at?" "No," he said quickly. His gaze didn't waver. "Just this one." The intensity startled her, so she broke it with sarcasm. "Congratulations, you've upgraded from jerk to poet. That's progress." Instead of being rattled, Ethan laughed, a genuine sound, rich and unpolished. The sound staggered Chloe. The man she remembered hadn't laughed lightly. He had commanded, sneered. She found herself staring, trying to reconcile the hardened businessman with the self-aware man in front of her. Finally she asked, "So what happened? Why the sudden epiphany? People don't just shed arrogance overnight." His smile faltered, replaced by heaviness. He ran a hand along his collar, sighing. "After that day here, something cracked. I went home and realized I couldn't remember the last time anyone had looked at me as human. Everyone bowed, obeyed, chased my approval. And I realized nothing felt real. Not my employees' compliments. Not my relationships. Nothing. When you whispered, 'You're welcome,' with that sting, it was like someone slapped me awake. The arrogance, it wasn't power. It was a mask over hollowness." Chloe tilted her head, studying him. His voice carried truth. Not rehearsed. Wounded but real. "I sold shares in the company," he continued. "Stepped away from the machine I thought made me invincible. Took a year to travel. Not luxury vacations, backpacks, quiet towns. Learned to work with my hands. Volunteered at shelters. Tried to remember who I was before money taught me to treat people like stepping stones." His eyes met hers again. "And every step I kept seeing you. That look you gave me. I wanted to return, not because it fixes the past, but because without making it right, I can't move forward." Chloe didn't know what stunned her more, that he confessed so freely, or that he remembered her, out of all the thousands who had likely served him in his high-rise years. "I think about that girl," Ethan said softly, standing in a greasy apron, still finding the courage to resist a man like me. "And I thought, if I ever get the chance, I'll thank her properly." Chloe swallowed hard. His sincerity was disarming, sharp against the memory of his cruelty. Yet a bitter laugh slipped from her lips. "Do you have any idea how many customers treat waitresses like garbage and think tipping at 20 absolves them? You're one memory in a pile of scars." He leaned forward, earnest. "Then let me prove I can be different than the rest. Even if it takes a lifetime." Silence stretched. Chloe searched his eyes, half expecting cracks, manipulation, ego dressed in humility. But all she saw was something she didn't remember from before. Vulnerability. "You're intense," she muttered, sipping her coffee to avoid his gaze. "Maybe because I finally know what matters." Her lips pressed thin, unsure if she wanted to let that truth land. When her break ended, Chloe stood abruptly. "I have tables waiting." Back to reality. Ethan rose too. "Fair. But, can I come back tomorrow?" She laughed incredulously. "You want to haunt my section now?" "No," he said, smiling faintly. "I want to build something. Even if it starts with coffee and chipped mugs." She should have said no. Every survival instinct screamed to guard herself. But her lips betrayed her. "One more coffee. Then we'll see." Ethan's relief softened his whole face. "I'll take it." The next morning he returned. And the morning after. Each time no limo, no suit. Just Ethan, a sweater, and conversation. At first Chloe kept walls high, tossing sarcasm like shields. But Ethan never recoiled. He listened. He laughed. He admitted faults freely. "I once thought waitstaff were background characters in my life," he confessed one morning, shaking his head. "Turns out I was the background in theirs until I chose to show up. That shame doesn't fade." "You're not the only one learning," Chloe replied quietly. "I thought customers like you were untouchable. Untouchable means unteachable. Now, Maybe change is possible. Change was indeed possible. Slowly, imperceptibly, coffee turned into walks after her shift. Walks turned into evenings fixing her leaky faucet together. Conversations turned into confessions. When he asked softly one evening, "Can I cook you dinner?" Chloe smirked and challenged, "You burned toast, didn't you?" "Yes," he admitted, smiling sheepishly. "But I'm a quick learner." For the first time, Chloe thought maybe this was more than apology. Maybe this was beginning. Chloe never liked attention. She'd lived on tips and invisibility for years. To most people, she was just another coffee pour, another filled plate, another muffled "here you go." That invisibility had been painful sometimes, but it was also safe. And now, sitting across from Ethan in their favorite booth, she felt the fragile beginnings of safety unravel. Because people were starting to notice. At first it was just her co-workers. They teased her lightly when Ethan started showing up regularly. "Your boyfriend's here," they'd nudge and Chloe would roll her eyes. "He's not my boyfriend. He's just persistent." But by the third week, regular customers had caught on. A pair of older women at the counter whispered loudly at his arrival, "Isn't that the guy from that finance firm collapse a few years back? And what's someone like him doing hanging around here with her?" The word stung Chloe. Not just because they carried suspicion but because they reminded her of how different their worlds really were. One evening after closing, she confronted him on the walk to her apartment. "Do you ever get tired of slumming it here? Eating eggs you swore tasted like cardboard? Drinking the coffee you once spat out?" Ethan stopped in his tracks, startled. "What?" She folded her arms. "You belong in high-rises, Ethan. Fancy restaurants, silk napkins. You keep showing up here, pretending chipped mugs and greasy tables suit you now. But your old world, your real world, isn't going away." His jaw clenched, not angrily but wounded. "Chloe, I left that world. For good. I don't miss it." "Maybe not today," she muttered, brushing past him. "But what about tomorrow? What happens when my world isn't enough for you?" He followed her to the stoop of her building, stopping her gently with a hand on her arm. His eyes, fierce and pleading, locked onto hers. "Then tomorrow I'll prove it again. And the day after. And every day after that until you see I'm not running an experiment, I'm living a choice." His words burned hot in her chest. She wanted to believe but doubt was stubborn. She slipped inside without answering, leaving him on the sidewalk staring at the closed door. The next few days were tense. He still came by, quieter now. He read books at the booth, patient, waiting. Chloe found herself glancing over at him more often than she admitted, annoyed by the ache whenever he wasn't there. But gossip reached deeper soon. On a slow Tuesday, the bell jingled and two men in sleek suits walked in. They weren't the diner types, more used to power lunches than formica tables. They spotted Ethan immediately. One laughed. "Well, look who it is. The golden boy fallen off his throne." Ethan stiffened, mug frozen halfway to his lips. Chloe, wiping down tables nearby, caught the flicker of shame across his face. The other man smirked at Chloe. "He tell you what he did? How he almost cost hundreds their jobs chasing deals too big for his ego." Heat flared in her chest. "Excuse me?" The man chuckled. "Guess not." He patted Ethan's shoulder mockingly. "It was in the papers. Everyone knows. Surprised you're not in some penthouse licking wounds instead of wasting time here." They left with mocking laughs trailing behind. Silence thickened. Chloe stared at Ethan. "Is it true?" His jaw worked, shame heavy. "Yes," he admitted quietly. "The deal wasn't just failing, Chloe. It was my pride. My arrogance. I pushed numbers too far, ignored warnings, thought I was untouchable. People were let go because of me. That call you overheard the day we met? That was me firing someone. My lowest moment." Chloe's rag dropped to the floor. "So I wasn't just dealing with a bad day. I was dealing with you, the man wrecking lives with a phone call." "Chloe, please?" He reached for her hand but she pulled back. "You want me to believe you've changed? That tulips and coffee prove you're not the same man." Her chest ached with anger and betrayal. "You humiliated me a year ago. Now I find out you helped ruin hundreds of people's lives? Why should I trust a word from you?" His expression broke, desperation swallowing his usual calm. "Because I'm not hiding. I tell you the truth even when it cuts me. Because I want you to see my scars, not just my flowers." Her chest stuttered. He wasn't defending, not making excuses. He was laying guilt open like a wound. But old survival whispered, "Don't be fooled. Men like him don't change." Not really. So she stepped back, gathering the drops of pride she had left. "I don't know what to think right now. I need time." Ethan's face fell, but he nodded slowly. "Take it. I'll wait. I'll wait as long as it takes." Chloe left him there, wiping tears furiously on her walk home. That night, she sat in her apartment with tulips drooped in their vase. She stared at them long enough to admit two truths. 1. Yes, she still cared despite her anger. 2. Caring scared her more than anything. The next morning at the diner, Ethan didn't appear. For the first time in weeks, his booth sat empty. Chloe's heart gave an unfamiliar pang, the kind that felt suspiciously like missing him. The absence felt louder than his presence had. For weeks, Ethan had filled his booth like a shadow she couldn't ignore. Now the booth was empty, and instead of peace, Chloe felt a hollow throb each time she carried a tray past it. She tried to tell herself it was better this way. Safer. Customers came, customers went. Some were rude, some were kind. None of them mattered. That's how she'd survived. But Ethan's silence was different. It gnawed at her far longer than she wanted to admit. 3 days gone. Then 4. On the 5th, when the morning shift began and her hands were already raw from scrubbing counters, the bell jingled. Her heart leapt reflexively, ready to see him stride in, bouquet in hand again. But it wasn't him. A group of truckers filled 2 booths instead, bantering with ease. Disappointment tangled inside her stomach, and she hated herself for it. Later that night, while walking home with groceries sagging in her arms, Chloe turned the corner onto her street. Halfway down the block, she stopped. Her front steps gleamed strangely under the streetlight. Flowers, 2 small bouquets wrapped in plain brown paper, sat neatly on the stoop. She approached timidly and unfolded the paper. No card. Just tulips again. Purple this time, slightly wilted from chill. She swallowed hard. It didn't feel like arrogance. It felt like waiting. The next morning on her porch, another bouquet. Yellow. The day after that, another. Orange. Always tulips. Always anonymous but obvious. By the end of the week, Chloe muttered aloud as she picked up the 5th set, "You're ridiculous." Yet she didn't throw them away. She placed each in mismatched jars, filling her small apartment with bursts of color. It was excessive, maybe obsessive, but it was quiet. He wasn't demanding. He wasn't intruding. He was showing up, still giving even while keeping distance. Finally, one Friday night when she locked the diner doors after late shift, she found him standing awkwardly at the corner across the street. Hands in pockets, no bouquet this time. Just him in the cool air, staring like a boy not sure if he was allowed near. "You've been haunting my porch," she accused, half stern, half relieved. Ethan exhaled, sheepish. "I didn't want to bother you. I just wanted you to know I meant it, that I wouldn't give up proving myself." "Without even talking to me," she muttered. "Talking's what I did a year ago and it only hurt. So I thought, maybe actions count for more now." For a moment, silence lingered. Then she sighed, stepping closer. "It's starting to feel like my walls are a florist's shop." His mouth curved into the faintest grin. "Then they're working." Her lips twitched despite herself. "You're stubborn." "Very," he admitted. She studied him longer under the streetlight. He looked different this time again. Not desperate, not proud. Just steady. "Come on," she finally muttered, unlocking the door to her apartment building. "I have too many tulips to water alone." His soft laugh followed her steps up. Inside, surrounded by jars of flowers, Ethan paused, wide-eyed. "I didn't actually imagine what it might look like when they all piled up," he said, voice strangely shy. Chloe crossed her arms. "It looks like someone didn't understand moderation." "No," he agreed softly. "It looks like hope now." The words twisted her heart painfully. She shook her head, forcing herself to stay guarded. "Ethan, just because you can shower someone in tulips doesn't magically erase the fact that your arrogance cost people jobs. Or that you made me feel like dirt." He nodded firmly. "I don't want to erase it, Chloe. I want to live every day in a way that makes it clear I'm not that man anymore. That's all I'm asking, for the chance to prove in action what words failed. His sincerity pinned her. She bit her lip, at war between instinct and spark. And what if you mess up again? Then I'll apologize faster than I breathe, he said. Then I'll learn until I get it right. Silence swelled, full of unfinished feelings. Chloe finally exhaled sharply, pacing toward her tiny kitchenette. Fine. Dinner. You cook. If it's edible, maybe I'll eat. If you burn it, I'll take it as a sign. His grin widened into boyish relief. Challenge accepted. It was disastrous, of course. Ethan fumbled, nearly set water boiling over, and had to call her twice from 3 feet away. But laughter filled her apartment for the first time in months. By the time they sat down to charred pasta with sauce suspiciously thin, Chloe was doubled over giggling. I told you this was a sign, she teased. Yes, Ethan shot back, smirking. A sign you can teach me. Through the laughter, through the burnt edges of noodles, Chloe realized something terrifying. She was happy. Truly happy. And she hadn't expected that in his company ever again. Afterward, they sat surrounded by tulips on her worn couch. For once, Chloe allowed silence to feel comfortable instead of tense. She glanced sideways at him, lips twisting. You're not off the hook, she said at last. Wouldn't dream of it. And I'm not promising anything. Understood. But, she whispered, looking around at the tulips, I haven't thrown any of them away. His eyes softened to glowing. That's all I needed to hear. And for the first time, Chloe leaned her shoulder against him. Not surrender, not forgiveness, but a small opening. An opening that, maybe, could become more. The weeks that followed carried the strange rhythm of something new. Chloe still worked her long shifts at the diner, balancing trays, pouring coffee, and juggling the moods of strangers. Ethan still drifted in almost every morning, sliding into his booth, no longer hiding behind bouquets but never failing to at least leave a tulip for her on the counter before he left. But the difference now lay in their pauses. They spoke more about small things at first, the weather, the regulars, the absurdity of diner life. Somehow that grew into bigger conversations. The childhoods they each endured, the regrets they carried, the dreams they hardly dared to put into words. One morning after a rush, while Chloe wiped syrup from a booth, Ethan asked carefully, "What did you want to be? Before life steered you behind trays." She snorted. "You mean before bills took center stage? Before my rent swallowed every plan?" "Yes," he said, smiling softly. Her rag stilled briefly. "I wanted to paint. Colors, murals, stuff big enough to stop someone in their tracks. But back then I also wanted 3 meals a day. So, here I am." Ethan studied her seriously. "Then maybe that shouldn't be where you stay." The suggestion stung. She frowned, crossing arms. "And what, in your new philosophy, should I do? Quit and conjure an art studio?" She gestured to her apron with sharp irony. But Ethan didn't flinch. "I don't mean conjure. I mean start. Little pieces. Sketching again. Paint when you can. Rebuild the dream step by step." She turned away quickly, rag resuming in sharp strokes, but her heartbeat betrayed her. That he asked, really asked, what she wanted, not what she was useful for, touched deeper than she expected. Still, doubts shadowed her warmth. Because she knew how easy words flowed when men wanted something. Words weren't enough. The test came sooner than either expected. It was Saturday night, nearly midnight, when Chloe left her shift exhausted. She turned onto her street and froze. Her landlord, Mr. Hill, stood under the light, tapping papers against his hand with familiar malice. "Rent was due 3 days ago," he snapped, eyes cold. "3 days, Chloe. You think I run a charity?" Her chest seized. She had scraped every tip, but her mother's medical bills had drained the last of her savings again. "I told you. I need 1 more week," she pleaded. "1 more week?" he snarled. "Always 1 more week. Do you know how many want this place? Consider yourself lucky She'll have it," a voice cut in, firm and steady. Ethan stepped from the shadows where he'd been waiting to walk her home. His presence startled both of them. Mr. Hill sneered. "And you are someone who won't let you exploit her desperation." Ethan approached slowly, his height suddenly intimidating. She said, "1 week. You'll give it? And you'll back off with the theatrics?" The landlord bristled. "I don't take orders from." Ethan pulled something from his coat, a check already signed. "Here." Her next 2 months paid ahead. Now you've got more than patience repaid. And you'll speak to her with respect from now on, or I'll take joy exposing how you prey on tenants. The landlord stuttered briefly, greed shadowing his resentment. He snatched the check and stalked off muttering, "Spoiled brats, meddling busybodies." Chloe stood frozen. Eyes wide, throat tight, emotion storming. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered, almost angry. "I know." Ethan's gaze softened. "But he had no right to treat you like a beggar. You deserve dignity. Always." Her breath shivered. "And just like that, you swoop in with your endless money? Prove me right about who you are at heart. Still the man who buys solutions, throws cash at problems." Ethan stepped back slightly, pain flickering across his expression. "It wasn't about money, Chloe. It was about respect. But maybe I still did it wrong." He handed her the receipt copy quietly. "Next time I'll follow your lead. Just know, I never want you walking alone in shame again." She watched him leave into the dark. Her hands trembled, torn between fury and gratitude. The following morning at her shift, he walked in sheepish, sliding into his booth, no tulip offered this time. Instead, he placed paints, real paints, brushes, a small sketchbook, on the edge of the counter. "What is this?" she demanded, stunned. "Not a gift," he clarified quickly. "A reminder. So you know life isn't just about fighting things like landlords. It's about letting yourself bloom too. Use them. Or don't. But don't think I see you as someone who should only serve others. I see you as someone whose paintings could fill walls." Tears pricked hot behind her eyes. She whispered, lips trembling, "You frustrate the hell out of me." He smiled faintly. "Then I must be doing something right." And for the first time, Chloe didn't push him away. She sat across the booth, laid her palm over the brushes gently and whispered, "Maybe you are." That night she painted for the first time in years. Not much, just streaks of color sprawled across cheap canvas. But when she set the brush down, Chloe realized something terrifying. She felt alive again. And she knew why. It wasn't just the act of painting. It was someone reminding her she deserved to. Someone who didn't just apologize with words, but carved actions to back them. Maybe she was beginning to believe. Maybe, against every scarred instinct, she was falling. The diner was quieter these days when Ethan came in. His booth had become a fixture, almost as familiar as the jukebox in the corner. Regulars knew him now, not as the surly suit who once sneered at Chloe, but as that guy who drinks too much coffee just to sit with her. Gossip still flickered, but most had grown used to his presence, even fond. Chloe had adjusted too. She began sketching in the margins of order pads, painting small canvases at home at night, sometimes even letting Ethan carry them upstairs so she wouldn't smudge fresh colors against her apron. Slowly, she felt herself fusing both identities, waitress and artist, servant and dreamer. But peace never stays untouched. The collision came on a Wednesday morning, announced by the sudden flash of cameras outside. A woman walked in first, tall and elegant, her heels slicing the silence of the diner floor. Expensive perfume lingered long after she passed through the door. Chloe didn't recognize her immediately, but Ethan's body stiffened like a wire. "Ethan," the woman greeted smoothly. "So this is where you've been hiding. A diner." Chloe frowned, setting down her tray. The woman was stunning. Sleek black dress, sharp smile, diamond earrings catching light. Everything about her screamed wealth. "You shouldn't be here, Vanessa," Ethan murmured, voice unusually clipped. Her laugh was delicate but cruel. "Why not? You disappeared for nearly a year," whispered into tabloids as the golden boy turned ghost. "My curiosity brought me." Her eyes slid toward Chloe, scanning her with disdain. "And imagine my surprise. All these months, you weren't reinventing a company or chasing a grand project. You were," she smirked, "playing house in a greasy spoon." Chloe's blood burned. She crossed her arms, biting her tongue. This woman knew how to slice with words, almost more elegantly than Ethan once had. "What do you want?" Ethan asked firmly. "Come back," Vanessa said. "Cole Investments is dangling. The board would forgive if you returned. Your name alone is enough to revive everything. Parties, deals, the life you walked away from, it's waiting. With me." The offer hung heavy. Chloe felt the ground shift beneath her. Ethan's former world, Its opulence, its cruelty, its cages had come to collect. Ethan shook his head, jaw tight. That life made me hollow. I'm not going back. Vanessa's polished brows rose. Because of her? She gestured toward Chloe carelessly, as though pointing not to a person but to a discarded prop. She'll never understand your world, Ethan. You belong with people like us. You throw it away for, what? A waitress with paint-stained fingers? The words hit Chloe like knives. Every old insecurity flared back. Invisible, ordinary, never enough. Ethan's eyes darkened. Don't talk about her like that. Why not? Vanessa countered smoothly. She's a distraction. She'll drag you down. You've built empires, Ethan. You can't live forever in chipped mugs and discount pie slices. Chloe snapped at last. Better chipped mugs than poisoned chalices. Vanessa froze, glaring daggers. The diner's few customers gasped softly at Chloe's sharp retort. Even Ethan blinked, startled, then pride flickered across his face. But the damage had already pierced Chloe's chest. After Vanessa left, heels clacking like gunfire, Chloe retreated to the counter, avoiding Ethan's gaze. He followed carefully. Chloe. She shook her head. It's true. You keep insisting you've changed, but sooner or later that world comes back for you. And I can't compete. I'm not Vanessa with diamonds or power. I'm just, her voice cracked. I'm just me. Ethan grabbed her hand so hard tears nearly spilled from his own eyes. Exactly. That's who I want. That world isn't mine anymore, Chloe. You are. Her breath hitched. Logic told her he meant it. But fear whispered louder. And if one day you wake up and realize this booth, this apartment, this simple life, isn't enough for you anymore? He shook his head fiercely. The only time my life felt alive was here. With you. Flowers didn't teach me that. Tulips didn't. The boardroom never did. You did. Her lips trembled. She wanted to believe. But that night, when she painted alone in her room, Vanessa's words echoed relentlessly. You'll never understand his world. For days, Chloe carried the weight of doubt. She dodged Ethan's attempts at reassurance, drowning herself in work instead. Still, his persistence pressed on. Tulips by the door, small notes. Your art is already changing you. Don't lose it. And his steady presence. The real test came when Vanessa returned again. This time not with persuasion but with threats. She accosted Chloe outside the diner one evening, a sleek car idling behind her. You think you've won him, she said silkily, pretending calm. But Ethan is a man of ambition. He can pretend to play simple, but he'll always hunger for power. And when he does, do you imagine he'll bring you into skyscrapers? No. He'll leave you behind. Chloe stood frozen, nails digging into her palm. Then Vanessa leaned closer. Save yourself heartbreak. Walk away first. Let him come back to people who understand him. Chloe lifted her chin. Her voice trembled but carried iron. Funny you say you understand him. But he's here with me. Not you. For the first time, Vanessa's polished calm faltered. Chloe walked into the diner and breathed shakily, hands trembling on the counter. Ethan found her minutes later, worry etched on his face. He reached for her hand again. You'll never lose me, he promised, voice breaking. That world is a coffin, Chloe. You gave me back breath. And I'm not leaving it, or you, behind. That night, Chloe finally let the wall begin to fall. She whispered through tears, maybe I'm starting to believe you. Ethan smiled faintly, wiping the streaks from her cheeks. Then let me spend every morning proving it. And for the first time, Chloe kissed him first. For weeks after that first kiss, life felt strangely balanced. Ethan showed up as always, tulip tucked behind his back, eyes kind instead of cold now. Chloe found herself waiting less grudgingly for the bell, softening her sarcasm into real laughter. They walked together after her shifts, trading stories not about ambition or downfall, but about dreams and fears. Somewhere in the quiet ease of chipped mugs and late-night strolls, what had begun as apology deepened into something neither wanted to name yet, too fragile to define. But inevitably, the small diner world wasn't enough to shield them from Ethan's past. One evening, Ethan arrived looking uneasy, a paper stiff in his hands. Chloe set a tray down, frowning. What is it this time? Another tulip bill? He tried to smile but couldn't. Instead, he slid the invitation across the counter. Gold crest. Embossed. The kind of weighty paper Chloe had only ever seen in magazines. "What's this?" she asked warily. "A gala," Ethan admitted. "One of my old colleagues reached out. They're announcing a major philanthropic initiative. They want me there." Chloe scoffed. "And by me, they really mean you. The old Ethan. The golden boy they want to parade for credibility." His eyes softened, regretful. "Maybe. But it's charity, Chloe. For children in underfunded schools. I want to support it. I want you beside me." Her chest froze. "Me? At a gala?" "Yes." He reached for her hand gently. "No disguises. No apologies. Just you with me. Because I don't belong to them anymore. If I show up, it has to be with the life I actually want." The thought terrified her. An apron and grease-streaked hands did not belong beside chandeliers. But part of her, the part that had started sketching again, painting small canvases she tucked secretly in drawers, whispered she wanted to see if she could stand tall outside her shell. So she agreed. The night of the gala, Chloe stood before her mirror, hardly recognizing the woman staring back. Ethan had insisted on buying her a dress, sleek black, modest but elegant. Her curls framed her face softly. She slipped tulip earrings into her ears, Ethan's small gift. "You look like you," he whispered when he saw her, awe in his smile. And despite nerves, she felt a spark of belief. The gala hall was dazzling, crystal chandeliers dripping light, champagne glasses lining silver trays, men and women gliding like swans in designer gowns. Chloe clutched Ethan's arm tightly, feeling smaller than ever. Almost instantly she heard whispers. "Is that her? The diner waitress? He brought her here?" The words wrapped themselves like invisible chains. Ethan squeezed her hand protectively. "Ignore them," he murmured. But ignoring wasn't easy when every stare seared. Chloe's chest burned with humiliation. She wanted to disappear, to shrink, to run. And then Vanessa appeared, sharp as ever in scarlet. Her smile sliced through the crowd. "Well, look who finally upgraded her apron." Chloe stiffened, but Ethan stepped forward, shielding her with his frame. "Say another word, Vanessa, and I'll remind them all why I left your world in the first place." Gasps rippled. Vanessa's smirk faltered, but she recovered quickly, brushing past. Yet the damage was done. Chloe's confidence cracked. She excused herself to the balcony, gulping cool night air. Tears pricked her eyes before she could stop them. When Ethan joined her minutes later, she blurted, "I don't belong here. Look at them. Even their waiters glide better than I walk. I'm a stain on this whole glittering pageant." Ethan's hands gripped her shoulders, steady and unyielding. "Chloe, look at me. You're the only real thing here. Do you know what they see in chandeliers and diamonds? Masked, empty games. You're the only one holding color against their gold. You belong here not because you imitate them but because you refuse to." Her lips trembled. "And what if you're bored, your partners all turn their disgust on you? You'll lose everything, Ethan." His eyes softened, fierce beneath. "I've already lost everything once. And all I gained from rebuilding was you. If I have to lose fortune to keep your laughter, then fortune can burn." The conviction in his voice cut through fear. For the first time, she let his words anchor her rather than scar her. They returned inside together, shoulders squared. Some people whispered still, some smirked. But others, seeing the fire in Ethan's eyes and the tuft of tulip earrings in Chloe's curls, softened their stares. Not all but enough. Later that night, after silent auctions and speeches, Chloe caught a glimpse of herself in the mirrored walls. Not broken. Not humiliated. Simply herself, ordinary but radiant at Ethan's side. And when the gala ended, when they stepped out into cool night under paparazzi flashes, Chloe didn't shrink. Ethan's hand holding hers was enough. She turned to him on the sidewalk and whispered, "Maybe I can learn to live in both worlds. If you're beside me. And you always will have me," he answered, lips brushing her temple tenderly. That night back at her apartment, tulips waited again in a jar. She laughed for the first time without bittersweetness. Perhaps finally flowers didn't mean apology anymore. They meant beginning. Chloe hadn't realized how quickly a life could shift until she looked around her apartment one Friday night. Canvases leaned against every spare wall. The once empty air now pulsed with color, shades of anger, shades of hope, bursts of life. Tulips still dotted jars, but they were no longer the centerpieces. The paintings had claimed space now, unapologetic, just like the woman creating them. Ethan noticed too. One evening he picked up a canvas, a swirl of blues streaked through with angry reds. "This one," he murmured in awe, "feels like the moment I first saw you digging your heels in against me. Fire and storm in one brush." She laughed dryly. "Funny way to remember being called edible appliance service." He winced. "Fair. I deserve every reminder." But then his eyes sharpened. "You've outgrown these walls, Chloe. Your art deserves a gallery. People need to see." She stiffened instantly. "Don't? What? Don't try to fix this with money. Don't rent me a gallery space I couldn't afford myself. Don't gild this just because you can. My art is mine, and if it grows on my terms." Ethan set the canvas down gently, guilt rolling across his features. "I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to control it. I just believe in you so much I forget belief alone is enough." She softened, her heart tugging at his regret. But the conversation lingered like storm clouds. 2 weeks later, another fracture came. Chloe's mother relapsed briefly. After weeks of fragile recovery, they found her missing from the clinic overnight, wandering half-lucid until she was found cold and exhausted at a bus station. Chloe collapsed when she heard fury and despair clashing. "She'll never change. I keep thinking, maybe if I pay one more bill, visit one more night, sacrifice one more part of myself, it'll fix her. But it doesn't." She sat hunched on the diner floor behind the counter, apron tossed beside her, tears streaking. Ethan crouched down silently, pressing his forehead to hers. "Chloe, loving someone broken doesn't mean you're broken too. You can love her and still have boundaries. You can help without drowning." Her voice wavered. "And if I can't save her? Then you grieve the storm, but you don't let it steal your sunlight." His words shook something loose in her. She realized he wasn't promising to solve things. He was promising to stay beside her when they couldn't be solved. But one final fear sat coiled in her heart. A fear strong enough, if unanswered, to fracture everything. One night after closing, she stared at him across the diner booth. The words pushed out, trembling but fierce. "What do you actually want from me, Ethan? Be honest. Do you want redemption? Am I just the waitress who scolded you once, turned into your symbol? Or do you actually want me, the messy, scarred, half-angry, half-hopeful me?" Silence claimed them for a fragile second. Ethan's blue eyes shimmered with pain, then certainty. "I want you," he said plainly. "Not my redemption. Not a symbol. You could burn every tulip I ever gave, smash every canvas you ever painted, turn back into the waitress who whispered under her breath, and I'd still want you. Because Chloe, that's the only version that exists. There's no trophy here. There's just a woman who has undone me and rebuilt me in better form." The words broke her. She collapsed across the booth into his arms, sobbing for everything she feared and everything she wanted. Later, when she steadied, she whispered against his chest, "Then let's stop testing if this will last. Let's just live it." The weeks that followed were filled with firsts. A day trip out of town, where Chloe painted wildflowers while Ethan napped in the grass. Nights spent cooking together and finally managing edible pasta. Emails arriving from an art collective that had stumbled across her work online, asking if she'd consider exhibiting small pieces. When she showed Ethan, terrified, he only smiled like the sun. "See? The world is already asking for you. No boardrooms involved." Meanwhile, her mother's recovery finally leveled. The clinic arranged longer-term rehabilitation. For the first time in years, Chloe didn't feel crushed under guilt but cautiously hopeful. She stood by her mother, yes, but she stopped letting that responsibility erase herself. And one clear morning, after Chloe had hung another painting beside her window, Ethan leaned against the frame and studied her quietly. His smile was shy in a way she'd never expected from him. "You know," he said slowly, "a year ago I thought power was measured in contracts. Then I met a waitress who told me you're welcome, when I deserved silence. Now, I can't imagine measuring life any other way than tulips, burnt toast, and your paint-stained fingers." She laughed softly, cheeks hot. "You waxing poetic again?" "Yes," he admitted. "But maybe one day you'll let me wax poetic about us forever." Her laughter stilled, replaced by stunned warmth. She realized what he was hinting at. More than tulips, more than diners, more than apologies. And her heart didn't panic at the thought. It beat faster but steady. For the first time, Chloe felt she could see it. A future not defined by what she lacked or by humiliation but by choice. Her choice. The diner bell jingled softly one spring morning. The air smelled of fresh pie and brewing coffee, but Chloe barely noticed. She was busy sketching at the corner booth, waiting for the first lull in breakfast traffic. Paint smudges clung to her fingertips, tulips filled a jar at the counter as always, and her apron hung loose around her waist. When she looked up, Ethan stood in the doorway. He wasn't in a suit or polished shoes. Just a blue sweater, the same kind he'd worn the first time he brought her flowers. His hair was slightly mussed, his eyes warm, steady. Something in his stillness unsettled her, not with fear but with anticipation. He walked quietly to her booth, slid in across from her, and set down a small box he'd hidden clumsily in his hand. Her breath caught. "Ethan?" He pressed her paint-stained fingers between his. His voice was softer than the hum of the coffee pot. "1 year ago you saved me without realizing it. You gave me coffee and defiance when I deserved nothing. And somehow, that turned out to be the beginning of everything. For me." Tears pressed unexpectedly into Chloe's eyes. She tried to laugh. "You're really about to propose where the floors smell like waffles?" He smiled. "Where else? This is where I first learned what love actually feels like." He pushed the box across but didn't open it, waiting instead. "Chloe Morgan, I don't want a world gilded with deals or surface power. I want burnt dinners, tulips in cracked jars, colors smeared across cheap canvases, and your laughter breaking my worst silences. Will you marry me?" Her breath trembled but the answer did not. She reached forward, opened the box herself. Inside, a simple silver band inset with a single tulip engraving. Not wealth, not sparkle, truth. "Yes," she whispered with a shaking laugh. She repeated, louder as tears blurred her smile. "Yes." The other waitresses gasped from behind the counter, a few regulars clapped, and the cook leaned out, grinning wide. In one booth, an older couple dabbed tears as though they'd been waiting for this moment too. Ethan slid the ring onto her finger and Chloe thought of the past. The cruel words, the humiliation of being unseen, the fear she had of never being enough. Now here she realized she had never been just a waitress. She had always been the defiant fire that could undo a man consumed by pride and rebuild him into one who could love without fear. That night, they celebrated not in some ballroom but in her small apartment surrounded by canvases and tulips wilting beautifully in their jars. Ethan cooked again. It was still terrible, but Chloe laughed until her stomach hurt and that laughter tasted like victory. Weeks later, Chloe's paintings appeared in a community gallery. She stood nervously by her pieces, murals of color that told stories of storms, waitresses, defiance, tulips, and held Ethan's hand while strangers admired them. She no longer shrank from eyes. She welcomed them. Her mother, slowly healing in rehab, came too. She whispered, "I'm proud of you," and for the first time Chloe believed it wasn't hollow. By the end of the year, tulips appeared not only in jars at the diner but woven into Chloe's wedding bouquet. She walked down an aisle again, not trembling and humiliated but radiant, paint still clinging to her fingernails. David from the diner cooked pies for the reception. Co-workers danced in aprons. Michael the cook cried. There were no chandeliers, no corporate elites, no sneers. Just love chosen freely. When Chloe and Ethan kissed, bells chimed outside, ordinary bells from the diner door jingling as someone slipped in to grab pie on the way home. But to Chloe they sounded like victory hymns. From waitress mocked by a rude customer to a woman loved without mask, her story was now hers forever. And when people asked later, "How did it all begin?" she would laugh and say, "It started with a cup of burnt coffee and a whispered 'You're welcome.' He came back with tulips and never stopped. Because some beginnings aren't polished. They're messy, awkward, even humiliating. But if you let them, they can bloom into forever."